Greetings everyone and welcome back to Joe's Metal Mancave. Today we're going to talk about a box set from Moonspell known as Wolves Who Were Men with the History of Moonspell. So, a little bit of a backstory then. Earlier this year, probably in the springtime, I came across a YouTube channel called Schizophrenia. And this guy, who I believe is from Brazil, he posts just basically YouTube-themed compilations. For example, he has like a 90s Norwegian black metal compilation, 90s, 80s death metal, and he had one that was, I believe, titled something like early 90s black metal, but not Scandinavian, and it was all just, bands from more, non-Scandinavian countries, Poland and Italy, stuff like that, and then, of course, Portugal, which is where Moonspell was from. And on that compilation, he had one of the songs from Moonspell's Anno Satanae demo, which was originally released in 1993. And years ago, probably over 20 years ago, back in the Napster days, I had downloaded Moonspell's Anno Satanae demo and enjoyed it and had every intention of buying it back then, but I didn't. And it's been a really long time since I heard that, obviously, and as soon as I heard that, that song in the compilation, I was like, well, I need to get my hands on this compilation. I want to hear all those songs again. But finding the original was out of the question, very pricey. And then I found that there was basically this compilation released together with the Anno Satanae demo and the pre-Moonspell band, which is called Morbid God. But it wasn't until I did a little research that I realized that this little compilation had only been released with the box set. And I originally hesitated on it because it was about $80 for this, and plus if you ever ordered from Cvlt Never Dies, the shipping is insane. Literally, regardless of what you order, they will charge you 50 British pounds. So if you order from them, you gotta bulk up and order a lot of shit. So I ended up ordering like 2 other box sets and a few CDs, all of which I still need to talk about eventually. But this was all back like the middle of summer, or maybe like June, something, I don't know. Anyway, so obviously in this box set, what you get is a re-release of all that old Moonspell stuff. You also get this really fancy box set here, which comes with a book which details the whole history of Moonspell and a few other goodies. But before I get into all that, I kind of want to talk about my relationship with Moonspell. So Moonspell for me was one of the first underground metal bands I got into, and to a lesser extent, one of the first black metal bands through their album Wolfhard, which arguably may actually not be a black metal album, but again, that's all perspective really. To me, it is a gothic black metal album, and I will always label it as black metal. But Moonspell is a band that, as the years progressed, they changed their style quite dramatically. In their early demo days, they were more of a raw black metal band with folk and, I guess, sort of Middle Eastern influences. It's a bit peculiar, but it was sort of like, if you can imagine this, Bathory and Celtic Frost meets this sort of folk-influenced and, I guess, like Middle Eastern sound. It was unique for its time, and honestly, it's pretty unique even nowadays. But that was what they released on Anno Satanae and their first EP, which is called Under the Moonspell. It was very diverse. Under the Moonspell is good, but maybe even too diverse for its own good, but very interesting release that was originally released back in 1994. So then they went into Wolfhard, which was, again, kind of more of a melodic black metal, gothic metal album, and by almost everyone's, regards it as a masterpiece, and I think it's a fantastic album. In fact, it's actually one of the few Moonspell albums I actually own. I bought this reissue a couple of years ago, and I absolutely love it. It's, it comes with the CD, so I ended up selling my original Century Media pressing. But, it's a great album, but, again, Moonspell progressed very quickly, and a big reason for this, and a lot of people always say, well, why the hell did they change their style so quickly? Well, the big reason for that, especially in the early days, was that a lot of members were coming and going, and, as it goes, certain members bring certain influences, so new members brought in new influences. So by the time they got their second album, they had moved more or less in a pretty much, I guess, pure gothic metal style. Irreligious is a great album for what it's worth, but it's an album that unfortunately slipped through the cracks in my collection. They sold it quite a few years ago. From there, the band went even further down the gothic metal, even kind of gothic rock hole, and then they did another album, which, again, was very polarizing. It really mixed opinions, and people were, people that had kind of grown up on Moonspell and been with them since the beginning were pretty much writing them off by that point. And then they went on to the Butterfly Effect in the late 90s, which it then suddenly introduced industrial characteristics, and it just further down that rabbit hole. And these guys are on Century Media, and as you know, the Century Media roster in the late 90s or mid 90s, a lot of bands are going down that sort of industrial path, and Moonspell is no exception. Then after that, they went on to Darkness and Hope, which was probably their most like just pure sounding gothic metal album. And then they did The Antidote, which was actually the last Moonspell album I ever bought, which was back in 2003. And up to that point, I had all the main Moonspell albums and generally enjoyed them, but just something after The Antidote came out, I kind of wrote the band off at that point and then just kind of forgot about them. So even though I haven't followed Moonspell throughout the years, they are, in a weird sort of way, just a band I've still kind of followed and kept up to date, at least a little bit of their songs, because they're, like I said, one of the first underground metal bands I got into, and just, I mean, I don't know if everyone feels that same way about those kind of bands, but for me, that's really special, and something that I've always just, I don't know, it's partial nostalgia, I guess, but it's been interesting following their current albums, even though I haven't been buying their albums since then. So, Moonspell, the history of Moonspell is very much, focused on the entire career of Moonspell, and what you get in this box set is, as I mentioned earlier, the main highlight for me was getting these old tracks, which is the Anno Satanae demo and the Promo 92 from Morbid God, which was the pre-Moonspell band. And then you get this book, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, which is a very, very interesting book detailing all the history of Moonspell. Then you get this large flag, which now that I finally did this video, I can hang on my wall. Very cool. I got it upside down. I got it around way up usual. Got this flag here, which is, very, very cool. Picture of the band, some sigils and all that kind of stuff, and other writing text, very cool. And then, of course, we have various, what do we got here? We got signed photo, which is really cool. I mentioned it's old members that were in the band when this box set was released back in 2019. Various photos of the band throughout their history, old and new, of course, here. It's an old live shot, really fucking cool looking one. There's another really old one from the early 90s when they were more in their black metal. Here's one from the Darkness and Hope era. Here's one I believe is from the Antidote era, maybe a little bit later on, or Memorial. Not sure where this one stems from, but a cool photo nonetheless. Another one that I believe is quite old, that's the classic lineup, or maybe the Irreligious lineup, I don't know. Here we got this one, really cool sunset photo. Another just relatively new band photo. I think this one is relatively new as well. Then, yeah, that's it. And then finally for this box set, we have a bookmark, which I have not used at all. I had some other bookmark in the book while I was reading it, so that's pretty cool. Then we have a guitar pick, which has both the Morbid God and Moonspell logos on it. Really cool. So that's basically the contents of this box set, and that's what I wanted to, just get out of the way and share right away. But to kind of dive more into that early sound, it's unique. In the intro they have this, I guess, Arabic chanting. I have no idea what's being said, of course, but I think it's very peculiar that a band from Portugal would have it in their music, unless there's something I don't know. But it was unique, and like I said, the first demo they released was sort of in this kind of Bathory and Celtic Frost style with these folk influences and that weird Arabic singing, and it's unique for its time. And this particular version I have here, this compilation, has it all remastered, so it sounds a lot better. Because as when I started to dive into this, I was like, wow, this sounds really good. There's no way the original sounded like this. And I looked the original up on YouTube, and it sounded like complete ass compared to this. So it's all remastered, so that's super cool. I should actually show the CD, shouldn't I? That's kind of what you guys like to see in these videos of mine. So yeah, there's the front cover, which has the band logos and picture, and then it kind of folds out to this the lyrics and some old band photos and flyers. Then it comes on a CDR, or not CDR, but a CD that looks like a vinyl, which I'll post a picture of because it's currently in my CD player playing as I talk about this album. But yeah, it's very cool stuff. Whereas the Morbid God stuff, which is just 2 tracks, and officially the band only recorded one single song called Serpent Angel, which is just more, I guess, just kind of typical early 90s raw black metal. Again, Bathory influenced, but not bad. And then there's a rehearsal track from Morbid God, which is, it's a rehearsal track, so you can probably guess what that sounds like. So as I said, I bought this from Cvlt Never Dies, and absolutely no regrets, even though it was $80. Because the book turned out to be absolutely fantastic. So the book is called Wolves, Who Are Men, The History of Moonspell. And the first thing you might notice is that it's wrote by Ricardo S. Imorum. And you might say to yourself, well, Ricardo's the guitarist who's been in the band since Irreligious. But no, that's actually not the case here. This Ricardo is just a guy who got to know the band in the early 90s and just was a fan and a close follower and friend of the band for many years. And then some years ago he approached the band about writing a biography, and so it was made. But interestingly, I think about 10 years ago, Fernando, the lead singer, he actually wrote his own biography about the band, but I believe it was all in Portuguese, so obviously this was, meant for a bigger audience, worldwide distribution, all that kind of stuff. So the book, as you can probably imagine, it just details the band throughout their years. It talks about their early influences, where they came from, and one of the really interesting things that has to be said right from the get-go is back in 1990, Corthan from Bathory, he did this sort of, promotional tour in various European countries, or at least for sure in this particular case, he went to Portugal. And I think it's really interesting that Bathory never performed live after the demo days or whatever. But he did these promotion tours where I guess he just took photos and signed autographs, and it's really peculiar to me to think about that, because to me, Bathory was always just this underground phenomenon, but it seems like in a lot of ways he was a bit more mainstream than maybe I've imagined it to be. I don't know. It seems peculiar to me that he would do a promotional tour. But anyway, the original members of Moonspell, they met him on that promotional tour, and it was a huge influence, and it was an inspiration to eventually start the band known as Morbid God. And it's really, what I like about the book is it's very well wrote, and it's it's not just snippets of interviews and stuff like that. It's all new stuff that was conducted during the construction of this book, and it's very interesting. I love hearing the thoughts of what their influences were initially and where everything kind of came from. And as the book kind of progresses, you basically just learn about the tours, why band members came and went. You learn about the lawsuit that one of the former members had in the late 90s and how it fucked the band for 10 years straight, financially and all that kind of way. And then you just get details and into their minds and where they were as each album came to be. And it's interesting. I think what makes this a lot different from, say, reading a biography on Motley Crue or Black Sabbath or something like that, a more mainstream and very successful, very rich band, is that this is a lot more down to earth and genuine. There's no stories of fucking whores or cocaine or overdoses or anything like that, or even really any wild parties or anything like that. It's very honest. Moonspell has continued on for now 30 years, and they're probably not making a living off of the band. They probably never have, and it's just it's pure passion. It's that they've just continued to deliver their fans. And although the music has changed a bit over the style, I think there's certainly many people that have followed them over the years and just absolutely love what they do. So, I don't want to give away the whole book or whatever, but what I can say is that if you are even a casual fan of Moonspell, I think you will definitely enjoy this. It has a lot of, interviews with other people that, kind of got to know the band over the years. Band they toured with, Danny Filth is mentioned from Cradle of Filth, the Rotting Christ guys. I want to say there's something from the Samael guys talking about, The Gathering, I think was mentioned here at some point in time too. And, just all the people that were, connected to the band, producers, record label. Century Media, of course, was their big label for several years. It's just, the majority of the pictures are all in black and white, of course, as you'd probably expect. But there's also some baby pictures. Oh, actually, here's that part I was talking about with Corthan when he was in Portugal. Really cool. Another really old school photo there. Actually, that's different. That's Fili Negrentum Infernalum, which was actually another early Portuguese black metal band. I also, through this book, learned about a Portuguese black metal band known as Decade, who I had never heard of at all until buying this book. So I checked out some of their stuff and I really dig it. So yeah, I really dig all those old black metal photos of the band. It's interesting, where they came from and, how they progressed over the years. But anyway, I was going to show some of these color photos in here if I can find them. Which I think might actually be some of the... some of the same photos I just showed from those cards earlier, but whatever. Yeah, so there's some color photos. Very, very cool. Again, if you have enjoyed Moonspell at any point in time, I feel like you could buy this book and really enjoy it. It's very well wrote. It's very engaging. like I said, I had never really heard anything Moonspell did after the Antidote album, but since reading this book, I've gone back and listened to all of that stuff, and it's actually really good. After the Antidote, they kind of carried on more in that sort of, I guess, gothic black metal stuff, kind of comparable to Wolfhard, but not exactly. It kind of lacked them. I don't know. It's not exactly, but it's close, and it has definitely some black metal characteristics. But again, I guess it'd be safer to say that Moonspell is just a gothic metal band with perhaps some black metal influences in their music. But yeah, I mean, another interesting thing when reading this book is I got to learn about the old side project Demonarch and their album Hermeticum. I bought this years ago, probably at least 20 years ago, and I've absolutely loved them. Very, very good, underrated melodic black metal album, which was done at the time by all of the then current members of Moonspell. But the one thing that always pissed me off about this album was it had programmed drums, and I always thought to myself, like, why is there programmed drums? Why didn't their drummer Mike take place? Well, I found out through this book that Mike was actually born in Boston, Massachusetts, but then in the late 80s, his family moved to Portugal. And I'm not sure if it's because his family is Portuguese or just his family decided to go to Portugal. I don't know, it's just very interesting, but the reason why he didn't partake on this album is that Century Media kind of like nagged him to do it or something like that, and then he was back home in Massachusetts when they were recording it, so they had to use a drum machine. And if it wasn't for the fact that they used a drum machine, it'd be a fucking masterpiece. It's still a great, very underrated black metal album, in my opinion. I'm going to talk about it at greater length at some point in time, but yeah. It was just interesting hearing that finally, getting the answer as to why Mike wasn't in the band. But, another cool thing about this book is that it made me, go back and listen to like the past 15 or so years of Moonspell, and it made me realize that there's actually some really, really good albums in there. Some of which I still need to pick up. More recently, I've gotten my hands on their new album. Actually, well, to be fair, my wife bought this, so I can't really take credit, but I definitely have listened to it because she bought it kind of just before I bought this book, so it was all kind of well timed out. This is their most recent album, which is it's decent. It's not great, but it's decent. Again, if you're a Moonspell fan, I think you could buy this album and enjoy it, but I thought some of the other stuff that they've done in the past 15 years was better than this, but it comes to this cool fold-out booklet, all the lyrics. I got it upside down, I got it upside down. And yeah, cool. So that's really cool. Maybe I should probably actually properly review this sometimes. I haven't listened to it like twice since she bought it, but yeah, that's actually all of my Moonspell collection. It's just the Wolfhard vinyl, that, and then the Demonarch CD. And, kind of weird, you wouldn't think that I would go and buy a whole box set, but again, kind of the whole point of it was to get those old tracks. But then after buying this, and I realized that those old tracks and the compilation as it was actually re-released back in, I think it was 2012 as a picture disc, but it was super limited, so who's to know if I actually would have gotten one. This was more readily available. And, obviously I got more out of the deal anyway, and I got to, kind of revisit, rediscover Moonspell, and even realize that some of that stuff in the late 90s that I'd sold years ago wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So to conclude things, all I can say is that if you like Moonspell at any point in time, or if they happen to be an early underground discovery for you, like they were for me, I absolutely 100% recommend it. I think you'll love it. This Ricardo guy, he writes really well, he really, sinks the listeners in. It's hard to come up for air. I loved it. It was just very, very in-depth, very passionate, and just very honest. And that's something you don't get when you hear a heavy metal band or a rock band story. It's always, this is more underground, like I said, there's no crazy night or like really crazy parties or no tales of fame and fortune and ruin and that kind of stuff. It's just very honest, and it's very down to like a normal person's level, and you can relate to it if you've ever been in like underground heavy metal band, or even just a modest band that played live a few years and released a couple independent CDs. It's all very comparable, and yeah, I think it was a great purchase, and I will probably at some point in time actually reread it again. So I thought it was that good. So that's about all I have to say for the history of Moonspell. Check it out if you enjoyed Moonspell. I'd definitely be curious to hear your thoughts on them. Other than that, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.